Look what's happened, Bob, in 60 years. We've gone from that 1914 Ford to this.
Time for a little fire breathing. These are the 1965 to 1974 FIA prototypes and GT cars, our last race of the day. We are on board the number 22 of Tony Swan, a 1975 BMW 3.5 CSL.
This is Rudge Cunningham's car, one of several that he brings each year. He's been a longtime BMW dealer and racer, was a great friend of the late Roger Ward's, and a great sportsman.
That BMW, I believe, was a Daytona winner.
Off and running, the red car, a Lola T70 Coupe on the outside, as everybody dive bombs for turn one. A Porsche sneaks to the inside of that BMW. That's a Ford GT just ahead.
We're going to try the outside. Listening for the shift points.
Still 2x2 here in mid-pack. This is hard fought on the first lap. And those 12-cylinder Ferraris working their way up through the field. There's a great representation of the 512s here. Tom Holfelder on the right in red and white stripes works his way up to the inside of Brian Barrington's Lola T70 Coupe. Oh, nice line by Barrington. He gets the jump coming off the corner and uphill.
Let's see if the Ferrari has the legs on the others coming up the hill. Doesn't look like it right now. That's Jamie Mazzata in the bright yellow 1970 Chevron B16 in fourth.
Well, if you can hang on to Brian Redmond's rear wing, you are doing one heck of a job, because he races as hard now as he did 20, 30 years ago.
What have I found here at the Monterey Historics? One of my all-time favorite car and driver combinations, the Porsche 9083 and its driver, Brian Redmond. Brian, tell me all about it.
Well, the Porsche 9083 was a magnificent car built at the height of Porsche race car building, when they were racing and building 25 917s, 10 factory 908s, and at the same time in 1969 they built and designed this incredible 9083 built only for the Nürburgring and the Targa Florio. The Targa Florio, 44 miles to one lap, 900 turns, and the Nürburgring 14.5 miles to one lap with 170 turns, and so built only for those two races. This was Dr. Piech, Ferdinand Piech, who authorized this and pushed it through. The car is superb. It's one of my favorite race cars of all time.
Now you're going to be in the race with another great car that you know all about, the CSL that you in fact had a win at the Sebring 12-hour race, and Daytona, of course. Going to be a little strange going past that, isn't it?
Well, it's from a different era, and you can't compare a production-based car like the BMW CSL to a pure out-and-out prototype race car like this 9083. And in 1975 and 6 with the BMW, we had tremendous success. The BMW Motorsports North America was formed in 1975, and the very first race, the Sebring 12 hours, we won. The team manager, Jochen Nierpasch, got the drivers together before the race. Right, he says, Hans, to Hans Stuck, you will go out and break the Porsches. And he looked at me and he says, Brian, he said, you will take it easy and win the race.
Well, a great strategy and one that worked, and after all, you couldn't tell Hans Stuck to run half throttle anyway, could you?
Absolutely, nor Brian Barrington for that matter. Here he takes the lead from Brian Redmond.
Well, is Redmond employing that strategy? Did he let Barrington go?
Right now he's got Tom Holfelder coming up right behind him in that big Ferrari prototype.
Yeah, but he didn't give him the inside there, Bob. So Brian Redmond holds on to second behind Barrington's Lola.
From the 31st annual Rolex Monterey Historic Automobile Races, this safety update is brought to you by Haggerty Insurance.
Back in the dawn of motor racing, the word safety hardly existed. You wore a flat cap backwards and a pair of spectacles, or if you were really lucky, you might get one of these, what they called a helmet, made out of leather, or this one seems to be made out of chicken skin. A pair of goggles to protect your eyes, of course, from stones. Today, it's all changed. This is a proper racing helmet to keep your head, and you've only got one of those, safe. Driving shoes that are flame-proof overalls, flame-proof gloves. everything certified as being capable of protecting the driver from any kind of nasties that could happen to him or her in an accident.
Brian Barrington, a Lola T70 Mark III Chevrolet leading as Holfelder gets a bit wide coming off that corner with the Ferrari.
Think about that, a priceless race car, and he's working it that hard. Off that same corner, this is Chris McAllister from Indianapolis, Indiana, driving a 1969 Porsche 917K, perhaps the one car most closely associated with the great endurance races of the world.
Yes, it's a Porsche 917K. I was in the 1970 Brands Hatch World Championship sports car race when this actual car, chassis 016, won the race, driven by Leo Kinnunen and Pedro Rodriguez. But it was a very wet race indeed, and the clerk of the course, Nick Syret, was so surprised by Pedro's sideways motoring that he black flagged him into the pits. Well, as soon as Pedro heard what it was all about, he was livid. He squirted out the pits like the bat out of hell, completely sideways, and then put on a virtuoso driving skill that I have never seen in my life. Even though I was in the race, I couldn't wait for him to come by just to admire how he could do it in those conditions.
That is still known as one of the great sports car drives of all time. And there is McAllister in that car. If you've ever seen Steve McQueen's classic Le Mans movie, you know all about the Porsche 917s. Up the hill he goes for his next meeting with the corkscrew.
Oh, around goes a Porsche 908. Oh, cement wall, and he just barely saves it. That was Michael Malone. Actually, it's a 910. It looks very similar to the 908. Pardon me for being excited.
Oh,
but that would have been a write-off if that had hit the concrete.
Here's another look. It's the right side wheels off, and then the back end gets away.
Can you say oversteer? It starts with P and ends with O-R-S-C-H-E.
And so fortunate to keep that car off the concrete. Well, he started 11th. He's a lot further back than that right now. Up front, 838, Brian Barrington in that Lola.
You know, I saw that car race, Bob, at Bridgehampton in 1967 and didn't realize it until I just saw it on the entrant notes, because back then it was a T70 Mark I, an open cockpit car designed for the U.S. Road Racing Championship, which became the Can-Am series. A lot of them were converted to endurance spec like this one and made into coupes.
Back in 13th place, number 6, John Giordano, driving a 1970 Ferrari 512S. An absolutely gorgeous example of Ferrari's heyday in the World Sports Prototype Championships.
This 1970 Ferrari 512S is the poster car for this year's Monterey Historics. Was driven in the 24 Hours of Daytona by Jackie Eakes, then went to Monza with John Surtees, raced the Targa Florio with Vaccarella, and then was later raced by Ferrari privateer customer teams. Plenty of power from its big mid-engine V12, but no match for the Porsche 917s. Nevertheless, it's hard to imagine before or since a sports racer that was so brutish, yet so beautiful, all at the same time.
An absolutely fabulous car. And here it is plunging down the corkscrew. Reminder of the great days of Porsche versus Ferrari at places like Le Mans.
The lead battle is heating up, Bob. Here comes Redmond right back after Barrington to try and retake the lead. He's closed up the gap, had a look there, and out braves and out brakes Barrington in a turn.
Great stuff.
No surprise.
If you ever thought they don't race vintage cars hard, here is an example. Just flogging these priceless machines. Meanwhile, how's Brian's other ride doing? This is Tony Swan in the BMW.
He's giving Cunningham's car a good ride here. You know, again, in sharp contrast to the Ferraris and the Porsches, this car was designed to a rule book that said you must start with a production-based car. He's in 18th place, and the very familiar white with the red, blue, and purple signs of BMW Motorsport. That car was a thriller when it ran for the championship.
And right now he's got a piece of racetrack all to himself. There's a look at our current standings. We'll be back to Laguna Seca in just a moment. The Monterey Historics draws enthusiasts from all around the world each year, spectators and participants alike. One entrant here for many years has been Dick DeLuna, who drove his 1917 Hall Scott to a 19th place finish.
Dick, of all the vintage race